Hello, folks. Thanks for being here. Welcome. Thanks for joining me as we document the kind of like a animal documentary, Animal Planet or something like that. We're documenting the sociopaths and the psychopaths and the parasites who run our systems, and it's kind of fun to see what they do next. I didn't think they were going to climb up that branch, that kind of thing. Very, very thrilling. Trump legit within a day of the cutoff for food stamps, SNAP benefits, food assistance, whatever you want to call it, for 40 million hungry Americans, the poorest people in the country. Trump had a lavish Mar-a-Lago Great Gatsby themed. When I first read it, I thought that was a joke. I thought that was like their analogy. It was like the Great Gatsby. No, legit Great Gatsby themed party at Mar-a-Lago. Let them eat Golden Ballroom, right? This is totally. We are so far beyond just like the fall of Rome, the monarchy in France just before the revolution, Marie Antoinette twiddling her thumbs just before shit went down. For those of you who need a little fresher, because maybe it's been a while since your grade school book assignments, here's one summary of The Great Gatsby that I thought I'd just remind everyone of. The novel's message centers on the hollowness of the American dream. Trump and his goons clearly have no idea what is actually in The Great Gatsby. They just know they had cool dresses. They had those little flapper dresses. That's awesome. The hollowness of the American dream when it's reduced to wealth and status. Gatsby's dream he chases is rooted in illusion, class barriers, and the moral emptiness of the elite. Fitzgerald suggests that money cannot buy meaning, love, or the past, and that a society obsessed with glittering surfaces lets the irresponsible destroy the hopeful and then slip away untouched. Trump is mocking himself, and he has no fucking idea. He has no idea that's what's going on. Totally horrific. Literally 40 million people the poorest people in the country are losing their food benefits, their food subsidies in one of the richest countries in the world. These are some photos from this glamorous Gatsby event. Oh, these are the best of the best in our nation. Look at this shit. I know some of you listen to the podcast. Just, if you listen to the podcast, picture Great Gatsby, but with Trump sitting in the middle of it. That's all you need to do. And by the way, this is an image of like flapper styled women in dresses. They were, I think, some of the dancers at the event, 1920s flapper costumes, and the totally horrific gold ballroom walls that they're in chandeliers that they're walking through. That's not Gatsby themed. That's just Mar-a-Lago. That's just Trump themed. We are at the end of the fall of Rome. We are just people in golden bathtubs drinking their lead water. That's all it is. These photos, and there's several photos of the building, which, again, not Gatsby themed. That's just Trump being Trump. All these horrific moments. I wanted to... Oh, by the way, everybody, thanks for clicking thumbs up. Click subscribe, leave a comment. All those things help a little bit. Love the super chats. You guys have been awesome throwing in a few super chats each episode. Really appreciate that. It does help this show keep going, despite all the censorship, all the suppression, all the shadow banning. But I wanted to read some of this article from Common Dreams about this Gatsby event, because it is so well written. It's by Amy Zimet. I didn't know of her before this, but she says, hours after exultantly posting 24 photographs about his gaudy new marble bathroom, and hours before he defiantly, and by the way, I haven't yet mentioned that, although I did say let them eat Ballroom, that Trump is building in he's tearing down part of the White House and putting in a giant gold ballroom. That is what's being put in right now, as they say they do not have the money to help people be able to eat in one of the richest countries in the world. There's no money for that. There's no money for 40 million people to be able to afford to eat. Can't have that, but we do have the money to put in a giant golden ballroom sticking off the White House. Again, none of the concepts, like the structural concepts that are undergirding all of this, have not changed depending on the president. It was like this under Biden, under Obama, under Bush, under Clinton, under Bush, under all that shit. It was like this. It's just, it wasn't, they weren't all such a caricature of the situation. You didn't have them generally having great Gatsby themed parties on the same day they're cutting off fucking food stamps. But anyway, she says, 24 photos of his gaudy new marble bathroom, and hours before he defiantly refused to fund food stamps and health care subsidies for 42 million Americans. Another side note, there's evidence that even with the government shut down, not evidence, it is accurate. Even with the government shut down, they could move funds around and still fund the food stamps. So there is not, it is literally an active choice by Trump and his goons to not fund the food stamps. It is not, they could do it under the even during the shutdown. Just throw that in there. King Donald held a glitzy Great Gatsby themed party for his robber baron cronies and their plastic malls, thus adding to his myriad crimes by defiling a luminous pivotal book that assails the moral depredations of the rich. Tell us without telling us. You don't know how it and its toxic Gilded Age ended. His government employees worked unpaid. Soaring healthcare costs loom. Doge cuts slow air traffic and social services, meaning the cuts have slowed down air traffic and social services. The U.S. debt has rocketed to a record $38+ trillion. Health experts say the country wastes nearly $400 billion in food each year. If the numbers are the same as the ones I looked up a year ago, 2 years ago, it was 40% of all American food. All food in America is thrown out. 40 fucking percent. And yes, a lot of that is off your plate. All of us scooping half our serving in the trash. That's a lot of it. But the bigger fraction of that is all of the food that is thrown out at all of the grocery stores and stores around the country because they want big piles. You know what sells oranges? Not a bag of oranges. What sells oranges is a big fucking Egyptian pyramid of oranges. So that, and not all of them are going to be bought, right? Fucking 10 of them are going to be bought and the rest will be thrown out when they go bad because no one's going to buy the bad oranges. So you just want a giant Egyptian pyramid of oranges sitting there because that's the only way that people want one of them off the top. Feels very good to pick that top orange off the top of the pyramid, right? That's what we want here in the US of A. MAGA Republicans are playing a vile, real live version of the Hunger Games, threatening to make over 40 million Americans, half of them kids, go hungry in order to, stick it to the Marxist libs? ? Is that the goal? Perversely, unwittingly highlight the damage. And by the way, how many of those 40 million Americans that they're trying to help starve voted for Trump? I'm guessing at least 50%, maybe a little bit less, because poor Americans tend to vote a little less for Republicans. But again, most Americans still buy into this fake two-party system. But yeah, probably close to half of them voted for Trump, and now he's, hoping to starve them. Perversely, unwittingly highlight the damage wrought by their fucking. And by the way, I would like to take a little credit for the fact that now you have even Common Dreams writers, writers in legit independent outlets, just casually using fucking. I feel like I would led the way in a lot of that. I've been casual. Well, I've been casually using that word since I think I was 3, but it's been all of my pieces. Everything I've ever done since years ago. So I don't know that this writer, Common Dreams, influenced by my casual use of fucking, but I'd like to say I was a pioneer in that front, you know. And of course, you can point to a lot of comedians that, George Carlin, the Richard Pryors and stuff that have been saying fucking for a very long time, but they weren't also writing articles for Truthdig. So I feel there's a little difference there. She says, damage wrought by their fucking big, beautiful bill that mindlessly cut $187 billion from food stamps in the august name of making fat cats fatter. Drive home the righteous insistence of these princes among men that if we don't let them take doctors away from sick people, they're going to take food away from poor people. That's a fair point. It does seem a little bit like, because while I think the Democrats are garbage, and in fact, assuming we have time, I'm going to get to Chris Hedges' article about how the greatest ally to Trump is the Democratic Party. So I am not saying this to just say, oh, it's all the Republicans causing the problem. But it is the Republicans that are stopping food stamps right now. That is because they, again, could move around money in order to continue to fund this even during the shutdown. But anyway, she says Trump's vile cohorts are also very busy telling racist, vicious, scapegoating, fear-mongering lies about who may be hungry in the richest country in the world. We're not actually the richest country in the world. I mean, if you look at GDP with the spending parity, then China would be kicking our ass in that regard. So. And we got $38 trillion in debt. So are we the richest country? I don't think you can really make that argument anymore. But whatever. We act like one of the richest countries in the world. Essentially, I mean, look, you can live fucking rich on debt. Look at Donald Trump for years before he became president, before he found the way of enriching himself, really well, which was the presidency. Years before he was president. He was he literally had negative funds. He had negative money, still living like a billionaire. So you can live very well on debt, on being absolutely having less money. He apparently famously said to one of his kids as they were walking into Trump Tower, he pointed to the homeless guy sitting on the ground as they walked into the building, and he said, technically I have less money than that guy right now because he had negative money, crazy debt. Anyway. She says, essentially, they argue that if 42 million Americans are struggling to survive in an oligarchic hellscape of inequity and abominable policy, they must all be cheats, frauds, losers, or lazy people of color who make bad life choices. So her point is, the mostly Republicans are arguing right now that, anyone who can't afford food, who's using subsidies, stamps to try and afford to eat, well, they must be frauds and lazy and cheats. And, oh, really? Is that how it works? No, I think that capitalism churns up people and destroys them. I forgot to say thank you for Newbie Apocalypse for the super chat. It really does make a difference. And you say thanks for all the greatly depressing information. Well, it is a little bit depressing, but I have had for my entire life, I've had this need to bring the truth. And I know a lot of you are like that. I think that's why you're probably here, is this need for the truth to both take it in and to relay it to others. And that's what makes us, everybody walks away from us at parties. That's where it is. Thank you, Dan, for supporting the show as well. Goddamn right. Really appreciate the super chats. So she continues, Mike Davis, white supremacist Mike Davis says, quote, we should only help people who can't help themselves. Get off your fat ghetto asses. Get a job. Stop reproducing. Change your shitty culture. Nice. Well done. Well done, racist shit stain. Also, despite undocumented immigrants being ineligible for food stamps, so they are not the ones with the SNAP benefits, Many immigrants with papers needing help because they work at shitty, low-paying jobs. Yeah, so many immigrants, not undocumented, don't have SNAP benefits, so that's not what's going on. There are many immigrants because guess what? 15 to 20% of America's culture, of Americans, traditionally and now are immigrants. That has been the same. That has been pretty steady. There's been moments where it got to more like 10% and moments where it got more like 15%. But throughout the history of the United States, it has been a regular influx of immigrants of about that many. Yet you have shit stains who need you and me and all of us to point our fingers and get angry at the other, because if we get angry at them in their fucking gold ballrooms, then the game collapses. Their game of exploiting all of us to enrich themselves, it collapses. If we unite and go at them, then and realize they are the problem and the system as a whole of capitalism is the problem, it fucking collapses. So instead, they say it's the other. Now you can fill in the blank of the other. Is it trans people? Is it immigrants? Is it not white people? Is it Iranians? Is it Palestinians? There's a whole long list of the other. Venezuelans. But the point is, they need you to get angry at the other. Hell, sometimes the other is just the party that's not voting for your presidential pick. So it's the people that voted for Biden or the other, or the people that voted for Trump or the other. The moment we unite and realize it is the millionaire and billionaire class that is destroying our lives, your lives, my lives, all of us. Capitalism is the system, but they are the sociopaths at the top of it. Their game ends. Their game just collapses. Thanks again, Dan, for another donation. Really appreciate the super chats. Let's see. To continue, a GOP strategist claimed food isn't going to 16 million hungry children, but to socialist beasts. Yeah, not children. Socialist beasts, because that's all. I've always said all children are socialist beasts. That's what they're just born that way. Doesn't matter whether they're children of Trump voters, children of right wingers, children of left wingers, children of liberals. They're all just fucking socialist beasts. We know that for sure, and that's the worst, because you got to try and especially if you're like a liberal or right wing, you got to try and beat that socialist beast out of them, as you got to get started early, getting that shit out of their heads. It's not easy. Clay Higgins figured moochers getting about $4,200 a year. I guess that's the common SNAP benefit, maybe. $6.20 a person a day. $6. That's what is being held back. That is what is being called egregious. $6 a person a day should have a month of groceries stocked ahead. This is what Clay Higgins, I don't know who that is, but piece of shit, obviously. She said GOP strategist, Clay Higgins. I was right, piece of shit. Should have a month of groceries stocked ahead, because that's what poor people do, right? They always have a month of groceries ready to go. And they should never receive SNAP benefits because stop smoking crack, he said. Right. It's tough to really comprehend how disgusting these human beings are. So that's what Trump was doing as food benefits for the poorest in this country are being cut off. Just an upstanding fella. But here's another aspect of this. Some grocery stores across the country had, despite them being run by people who are enriching themselves by selling groceries, yeah, that's part of the program. And most grocery stores, I don't know what the percentages are, but most are part of of giant monopolies. There are a small subsection of grocery stores in America that are not part of those giant food monopolies. Maybe those are the ones we're talking about in this upcoming article. But the USDA told grocery stores, sent out a memo to grocery stores saying they cannot give discounts to SNAP recipients, to food subsidy recipients, meaning there was a small number of grocery stores that, despite food stamps getting cut off, SNAP benefits getting cut off, they were going to give them discounts anyway because these grocery stores realized that these people can't eat and they're going to starve. And some of these grocery stores wanted to help those people. I don't know if they had some sort of plan that the grocery store could write it off as a charity donation or something. I have no idea, or whether it was literally out of the pocket of the grocery store. But either way, some of them were thinking of doing that. But the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, sent a warning to the grocery stores not to provide discounts to the 42 million Americans affected. Don't you dare have any kind of moral core. Don't you dare help people. Several grocery store chains and food delivery apps have announced in recent days that they would provide substantial discounts to those who were on the SNAP program. More than 1 in 8 Americans rely on the program. 1 in 8 Americans. The so-called richest country in the world. 1 in 8 Americans. And 39% of those are children. 1 in 8 Americans are on this program, are getting benefits to try and survive in this country. An email from the USDA that was sent to grocery stores around the country telling them they were prohibited from offering special discounts to those at greater risk of food insecurity due to the cuts. And I've made fun of this before, but the euphemism of food insecurity. It's like, it sounds bad when we say hungry or dying of starvation. We'll call it food insecurity. Here's a quote from the email. You must offer eligible foods at the same prices and on the same terms and conditions to SNAP customers as other customers, except that sales tax cannot be charged on SNAP purchases. You cannot treat SNAP customers differently from any other customer. And they're hilariously using the SNAP equal treatment rule to basically claim this, which was a rule that was put in place to stop grocery stores from increasing the prices of SNAP foods, of people using SNAP, to buy foods. So basically, some evil grocery stores were like, well, we don't really want to sell it at a cheaper cost to SNAP benefit folks. And so let's try and crank up the cost. Let's gouge them so that we don't lose or there's not as much discount. And so this equal treatment rule was put in place really to help them, to help back in the day, to help people who need food assistance. And now the USDA, the Trump administration, are using that rule called the equal treatment rule to say, oh, no, you can't help these people. You need to make them starve. That's because we want to starve them and we want your help doing it. And we don't want you stopping the starving. That would be a real problem if you were to stop the starving of these people. And like, to me, especially when you the dichotomy, when you put it up right next to the comparison of Trump in the Great Gatsby Gold Ballroom next to those who are starving because they can't get the cheapest groceries they can find, they can't even afford. You put those two up and you think, maybe this isn't an accident. Maybe this is intentional. Maybe these richest sociopaths in the world actually want people to starve or to not be able to just get by or to not be able to survive, to pay for their lives. And there's a lot of evidence to that these people, the sociopaths, the parasites at the top, the ruling elite, parasites in both parties, there's a lot of evidence that they're, kind of hoping that they can kill off a certain amount. I mean, you heard one of them saying the quiet part loud, stop breeding. They're hoping they can quietly kill off a certain percentage of the population. And this goes back, and I brought you this months ago, but I've referenced it multiple times. The origins of our egregious healthcare system. America being the only industrialized country that still charges people egregiously for healthcare. That system was put in place by a eugenicist. Or rather, the movement to give universal health care to Americans. The main fight and the studies and the data, which was all false, but that didn't matter. The data and the charts and everything that was used to fight against universal health care in the early 1900s, that effort was put together. I think it was Ludwig Hoffman. Is that his name? Originally from German immigrant. And he was racist, white supremacist, eugenicist. And the hope and the explanation was, if we don't give poor people health care, then they will die out more easily. And he really was hoping, and people who supported him really were hoping, that that meant black people, that black people would die out in America if you just make sure they don't have universal health care. And so he was one of the big pushes behind that. And this has some similar feelings, which is, let's make sure these people can't afford food. And if we do that, then the odds of them being able to have more kids, the odds of them having successful lives, the odds of them being comfortable in America, all fade or decrease. And it seems very eugenicist at its heart. Okay, I want to get to some news about the ongoing effort to destroy Venezuela. Let's see. I'll do this one first, but I want to give on Mamdani. The election, by the way, is tomorrow. There's been early voting. That's now over, and the final election day is tomorrow. And I've already given my view on Mamdani, which is definitely fucking better than your other options. Cuomo is a disgusting shit show of a human being. So is Eric Adams, although he has now dropped out and endorsed Cuomo. Mamdani is not, he's not Mr. Perfect. He's not anti-capitalist. He's not, he's done things like call Maduro a dictator. He said, Hamas should completely disarm, despite he has called for a free Palestine, and he has called it a genocide in Gaza. But, there's a lot of things to pick apart as not perfect about Mamdani. I get that. I understand that. And, in an ideal world, you get someone who is actually anti-capitalist, but this is not how our system works. But anyway, I'm going to bring you a little bit about Mamdani for a second. And then later in the show, I'm also going to bring you how Democrats are the best allies of Trump. Contradictions are important in our understanding of things. Contradictions exist. I would say that Mamdani, if we had a legitimate political system, an electoral system that actually represented people, represented many different parties, if parties didn't exist, if legit you just looked at what an individual was saying, the ideals they stood by, and of course, if you had no money in it, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it would be co-opted, commodified, or not commodified, but it would be co-opted by capitalism eventually. But I'm just, for a minute, it'd be really fun to have this type of system. If you had that, then Mamdani would not be running as a Democrat. He doesn't fit into that. That's why they all didn't want to endorse him at first. Cuomo used to be a Democrat, right? And now he's running as an independent, and he's being endorsed by Eric Adams, who's a Democrat, quote unquote, right? This corrupt current mayor of New York. So these parties don't mean shit. I've tried to explain this so many times. They are meaningless. They are garbage. And where they have meaning, it's actually the opposite of a positive meaning. It's that this system is controlled by these sacks of shit. But anyway, here is the latest polling. New York City is just a day away from electing its next mayor. Real clear polling average of polls. So, you get one poll can be kind of corrupt or misleading, but when you average the polls together, you're more likely to get something that is far truer. And right now it's showing Mamdani winning by 14.7 percentage points. 14.7. Now, will some votes be stolen in this, the semi-corrupt New York system? Absolutely, they will. But generally, in what we've seen in the past, is they can't usually steal 14 points. They can steal a percentage of that. It also gets more complicated as to who is actually running the systems. Like when we saw the percentages stolen from Bernie in 2016, the Hillary Clinton wing of the party controlled all the electoral system. Like there was no Bernie uh Bernie fans or volunteers or employees that were running the New York electoral system at that time. So it depends on who's controlling it. And by the way, just a reminder, New York actually admitted in court that they had rigged that 2016 primary. Go look it up. They were forced to admit it in a lawsuit. Zoran Mamdani is leading most of the polls by double digits heading into Election Day. Republican President Donald Trump says NYC's federal funding is at risk if, quote, communist Mamdani wins. So I will say this, it also is, well, let me finish reading this couple of sentences, then I'll say that. More than 735,000 voters already cast early ballots, which is historic for a mayoral election. Many of them are younger New Yorkers. Current New York City Mayor Eric Adams has endorsed Cuomo, right? So that's two Democrats supposedly endorsing each other. He's endorsing Cuomo. Cuomo's running against Mamdani. These are so-called Democrats, but the parties mean nothing. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who refused to endorse Mamdani for a long time, is now seeing the writing on the wall and has endorsed Mamdani. Hakeem Jeffries is an AIPAC-funded horrible shit show. Anyway, what I was going to say is one of two things happen here, which is the positive things that you see that Mamdani has said. He does seem somewhat to stand more for your average New Yorkers than rich as fuck Cuomo or whatever. The positive things you see from Mamdani, he also has said that he would create city-funded grocery stores that could offer groceries at a fraction of the price of the grocery monopoly. But just to give you a couple of sentences, he also said public transportation should be free. So just to give you a couple examples of things he has said he wants to do. Either he gets into office and you will see the systems work so hard to crush anything positive that he actually stands for. Anything that could actually help people, they will work so hard to just stop it, to destroy it, to co-opt it, all of the things. And either he succeeds, Mamdani succeeds in getting some of this through, and you actually see that there can be some positive policy initiatives, and it shows you something about the system. Or they succeed in crushing it, in crushing any of the little positive things that it seemed like he could get past, because he's more likely to get smaller things passed than to stop the genocide in Gaza. That's not something the New York mayor has control over. Would be wonderful if he did that. That would be awesome. But so you look at these things, and in the case that they succeed in co-opting him, co-opting all of his messaging, funding him in some way that makes him just answerable to AIPAC and horrible corporate titans, you learn something, don't you? I think a lot of people would learn something. I think a lot of people learned something similar with Obama. So either way, I feel like you learn something about the system. Those people who are still stuck in this two-party kind of mind virus, I think they learned something in this election, which could be positive. Waking people up is always a positive. Just to show you how much the Wall Street Titans are trying to buy this election and to make sure Mamdani doesn't get in there. This is just a couple of days ago, Bloomberg just dumped another 1.5. Bloomberg, another so-called Democrat, right? Isn't it fascinating how much the Democrats are trying to stop a Democrat, so-called Democrat, from winning the election? Bloomberg dumped $1.5 million into a pro-Cuomo super PAC. That was a few days ago, meaning Bloomberg dumped that 1.5 million to be spent in like a couple of days. Like that was at and I'm sure he gave millions before that, but this is just within the last few days to to try and rig this election. And that's just one guy. That's like crazy amounts of money are being dumped into this election in New York to try and stop Mom Donnie from getting in there. Okay, I want to move on, and as promised, I'm going to really try and get to Chris Hedges and his new piece on how the greatest ally that Trump has is the Democrats, and I'll explain why. But before we do that, let's play a quick clip of Maria Corina Machado, the Nobel Peace Prize winner. She just wants peace. And how does she want to achieve peace? By getting the U.S. to bomb her country. And it just makes sense. I mean, if you want peace in your country, the answer is for the U.S. to bomb it. Everyone knows that. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm at the right part. I want to start here. Okay. But here she is talking about how just trying to get Trump to understand that the best thing for all the people is if he bombs and destroys her home country.
This language you use, narco-terrorism, this is exactly the language that the Trump administration uses about Venezuela. And President Trump is saying after the boat strikes, the land will be next. Do you support U.S. military strikes on the territory of Venezuela as part of what you call a process?
I believe that the increase in pressure and the escalation that's
I just wanted you to see the euphemism. She didn't want to say U.S. strikes, so she said the increase in pressure and escalation, which is killing fishermen off of Venezuela. They have been murdered. Over 60 have been murdered. These are strikes on her so-called fellow countrymen, also Trinidadians and Ecuadorians and Colombians, but also Venezuelans. So she's using a little bit of a euphemism there to not say strikes. But anyway.
I believe that the increase in pressure and the escalation that's taking place is the only way to force Maduro to understand that it's time to go. And
think about that sentence. I mean, imagine if an American who, she's opposition leader, so she is I don't know if she's in office at this moment, but either is or was, I actually don't know, but part of the government. So this would be like, someone in U.S. Congress, let's say Bernie Sanders or, any of the Democrats or whatever, calling for what, Iran or Russia or something, to bomb the United States to show Trump it's time to go. Now, as much as you may go, hey, I'd be for that. As much as that's an interesting idea, that would be considered treason. I don't think it would end well for whatever congressperson is calling for Russia to strike the United States. But this is what the U.S. and the Nobel Peace Prize Committee consider good diplomacy. What awesome diplomacy. Please come bomb our country so that the president knows it's time to go.
Those that still support him, which are not very few at this moment.
And that's just a flat out lie. Maduro is still heavily supported in Venezuela.
The top brass of the military, financial enablers.
Top brass of the military. Oh, she's saying they do support him. The vast majority of the military also supports him.
Front men that are making huge, obscene fortunes with the hunger of our people.
She's one of these people where in order to try and explain or understand what she's talking about, you literally have to pick apart every word because every word is a lie or garbage or fake news or whatever. She's talking about these people under the Maduro administration who are getting crazy rich, which, first of all, not true. Secondly, if she got what she wanted, which is cooing of Venezuela, the country falls, she or another goon is put into power, they then allow the privatization of all of Venezuela's resources, Venezuela's huge oil resources, etc. Who does it enrich? would crazily enrich the oligarchy in Venezuela that is out of power right now, the oligarchy that used to be in power pre-Chavez. It would enrich them, but it would also enrich U.S. Oil companies and American oligarchy in general. So she's saying, oh, these people are getting rich right now in Venezuela, which is not true. But in fact, she wants to enrich the oligarchic psychopaths, both in Venezuela and in the United States. Also, she says getting rich off of Venezuelans starving. And of course, she knows, unless she's really deluded herself so thoroughly she believes her own lies, she knows that the reason Venezuelans, some are starving, is U.S. economic war. It's committed by the U.S., but she's not criticizing the U.S. She's saying, no, the U.S. is doing great. The U.S. should start bombing us. That would be even better. And they have been bombing Venezuela, but only in the oceans for the moment. They're talking about bombing on the land. Let's see. Did I want to play any more of this?
Better understand that, time is running out. And I believe that this escalation is the last opportunity for those that still support Maduro to understand that they need to put, aside, take all support away from him and Maduro himself to understand that this is the last chance to truly facilitate a peaceful and orderly
transition. she her if you shrink all that down, you get rid of all the extra words. She said bombing us, Venezuela, meaning the US bombing Venezuela, is the only way for a peaceful transition. What? Bombing Venezuela is the only way for a peaceful transition. That's like saying burning down your house is the only way to put out the fire. That is one of the dumbest sentences. Bombing us is the only way to a peaceful transition. It's so hard. She also, called out the Maduro supporters, basically anyone who voted for Maduro, which Venezuela has more legit elections than the U.S. does. And whether you like Maduro or hate Maduro, he was voted into office by a huge number of Venezuelans. So she just said to all the millions of Venezuelans, she said, that still support Maduro, she said, yeah, bombing Venezuela is a way to get you to understand that you shouldn't support Maduro. Like, holy fuck, what a sociopath. God damn it. Where do they even find these lunatics? Like, what rocks do they overturn? All right, I'm taking too long on this topic, but and the White House has said Venezuela strikes fall short of triggering legal limits, because this is all the Democrats have done. This is the entire pushback of the Democrats, borderline nothing. They asked the White House to explain the legal reasoning behind the blowing up of fishermen off of Venezuela. And even if it were true that these were drug traffickers, you can't blow up drug traffickers either. You can't just blow up people around the world because they have some coke. Like, that's not a thing. But so some Democrats sent a letter to the White House saying, please explain the legal justification. The escalating military strikes against alleged drug traffickers, bullshit, but have killed 64 people. And the White House has said that the level of the hostilities are not high enough to trigger statutory limits on operations. So it's supposed to be illegal in the United States for the president to be bombing people without Congress's use of military force, authorization of use of military force. Congress hasn't technically declared war since World War II, but they do often pass these AUMFs, which they did year after year after year for Afghanistan. They did for Iraq, etc. Trump is saying, I don't even need an AUMF. I don't even need approval from you to be committing military strikes, because this is just casual murder. This isn't a war. It's just kind of like a hangout on the weekend murder. 60, 61 fishermen. Come on. That doesn't count. Just a casual murder. The claim comes as Monday marked the 60-day deadline where Trump had to answer the legal justification. The deadline stems from a 1973 War Powers Resolution, which stipulates that the president has the authority to respond militarily to threats to the United States, which this doesn't count as, but he's pretending it does. But that after 60 days of military action, he must seek congressional approval or a 30-day extension. All of these decisive strikes. This is the White House official. All of these decisive strikes have been against designated narco terrorists. They literally don't know who they're killing, by the way. Bringing deadly poison to our shores, as if the fucking president gives a shit about whether poison enters the United States. U.S. presidents allowed the opioid epidemic to go on for years with no ramification. And that was mainly coming from Purdue Pharma and Big Pharma. You don't care about poison in America. Yeah, when are they going to stop Doritos from entering America? When are they going to stop Pepsi and Coca-Cola from coming across the border? They don't give a shit about poison. Trump spends all day, every day at McDonald's. He doesn't poison. Like they care about Americans. He just cut off food stamps. He doesn't care whether Americans are doing well or surviving. And because they're trying to cover up the fact that they don't know who they're killing, they're just bombing Venezuelans because they're trying to create a coup in Venezuela. They want to create fear among both Venezuelans and among Maduro and the higher ups in the military. That's really their goal. It has nothing to do with drugs. It has nothing to do with narco terrorism, which is not a thing. It has nothing to do with any of that. Just has to do with showing that the United States is willing to bomb Venezuelans. That is the entirety of it. And to create fear among top Venezuelan officials that they hope will bring down the government. So for that reason, they don't want the truth getting out about these strikes, about who's being killed, about how they're deciding who to bomb. And so Pete Hegseth, our white nationalist head of the Department of War, and by the way, that is one name change I'm willing to abide by because it reminds everybody that we are at war and murdering people all day, every day. I know that they changed it because Trump feels it's stronger to say Department of War instead of Department of Defense. But I'm willing to use his name change because he's actually revealed that, yeah, it is all war. It's not defense. It's not defensive. It is fucking war and murdering people. That's what I mean. If it were up to me, it'd be called the Department of Murdering People. But anyway. Department of Bloodbath, Department of Psychopaths, maybe. The Office of Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, has disseminated a broad list of topics that the Defense Department personnel are now required to seek prior approval on. Basically, he's trying to stop the military from speaking to Congress at all. And you've got to remember, there are millions of people in the military. Congress is often reaching out to people other than Hegseth. They're reaching out to top-level generals. They're reaching out to top-level officials, to the spokespeople, to the press room, the Pentagon people for answers. And Hegseth is trying to make sure that none of them give any answers as to what's going on with the murdering of Venezuelans and Trinidadians and Ecuadorians and Colombians. One more piece of this before I get to that, or two more pieces before I get to that Hedges article. Orinoco Tribune is pointing out the Pentagon can't identify who it's killing in Latin America. They have admitted that the Pentagon admitted they have no information about the identities of those aboard the boats. They've bombed 15 boats, killing 61 people. And Pentagon officials said that they do not need to positively identify the individuals on these vessels that they blow up. They just need to prove a connection to smuggling, meaning that it doesn't matter who's on the boats. They just want to say, oh, we know that boat is probably smuggling, so we can murder those people. And as we've seen from the two survivors, there's only been two because it's very rare. Not only are they many of them not Venezuelans, but they're not drug traffickers. Ecuador, which is currently essentially an ally of the United States, the one survivor that was sent back to Ecuador was released by Ecuadorian authorities because they said we have no evidence of drug smuggling by this person. Now, of course, he's fucked up for life. I think he's, in a coma or something, but, and here is, from Reuters, how the U.S. is preparing a military staging ground around Venezuela. The U.S. is basically encircling Venezuela. Quick reminder, they have the biggest oil reserves on Earth. I'm sure none of this has to do with that. Most oil on Earth of any country. The U.S. is putting military resources around Venezuela. Two of the biggest ones are the Roosevelt Roads Naval Base in Puerto Rico, which was shuttered 20 years ago, so it's not operable, but they're working to make it operable again in Puerto Rico, which is 500 miles from Venezuela. In addition to that, where is the other one? Roosevelt, until 2004, Roosevelt Roads was one of the biggest U.S. naval stations in the world. The second one is, let's see, in addition to that, the U.S. is building out facilities at civilian airports in Puerto Rico and St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. The two U.S. territories sit roughly 500 miles from Venezuela. And we've put battleships out there, and we've tried to manifest false flags out there that make it look like Venezuela is attacking us so that we can then go to war with them. And all of this is while people are saying Trump is a peace president. He's steadily putting in place the chess pieces to create war with Venezuela. And it's fucking repulsive, and people should be repulsed. All right, before I run out of time, let's talk about how Trump's greatest ally is the Democratic Party. But before I do that, I also want to say I'm going to bring an extra segment over to Locals. I also today and Patreon. I also have a live stand-up comedy show December 12th in New York City. Go to tinyurl.com/Lee Cobra Club because it's at the Cobra Club in Brooklyn. It will be with John F. O'Donnell, also from Redacted tonight. So don't miss that show. It's my first time performing in New York City in years. I hope you'll come on out. That's December 12th that we'll have that show. Also, please join up, get a free month and you don't just get a free month if you sign up for a year. It's get a free month and you can cancel after that month and pay nothing. So you get a free month, period. Free month over at leecamp.net. Scroll down to become a supporter. And then when you're checking out, use promo code LeeCamp free. One of the articles that I didn't have time to get to, maybe I'll get to it Wednesday, is I just put up a new Substack, which you can read if you'd prefer, titled, Could You Imagine a More Terrorist State Than Israel? Could you could you come up, if Israel wasn't around and you just were trying to think of the most terrorist state, could you come up with a more terrorist state than Israel? And I want you to go check out that article. That's at realleecamp.substack.com. You can subscribe for free over there, or you can become a paying subscriber as well. Either one. realleecamp.substack.com. Since I don't have time for that, maybe I'll cover that on Wednesday. But okay. Let's get to good old Chris Hedges' recent article. Trump's greatest ally is the Democratic Party. And I'm just going to read some parts of it and give my thoughts. The Democratic Party and its liberal allies decry the consolidation of absolute power by the Trump White House, repeated constitutional violations, flagrant corruption, the deformation of federal agencies, using them as attack dogs for Trump's opponents and dissidents. Liberals and the Democratic Party warn that time is running out, but at the same time, they steadfastly refuse to call for mass mobilizations that can disrupt the machinery of commerce and the state. It treats the handful of Democratic Party politicians who address social inequality and abuses by the billionaire class, including Bernie Sanders and Zohran Mamdani, as lepers. It blithely ignores the concerns and demands of ordinary Democratic Party voters, reducing them to disposable props at rallies, town halls, and conventions. The Democratic Party and the liberal class are terrified of mass movements, fearing correctly that they too will be swept aside, which they should be. Let's see, I'll pull this down for now. That they too will be swept aside. They delude themselves that they can save us from despotism as they cling to a dead political formula, mounting vapid corporate indentured candidates such as Kamala Harris, or the Democratic Party candidate and former naval officer running for governor in New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill. They cling to the vain hope that being against Trump fills the void left by their lack of vision and abject subservience to the billionaire class. And as we've seen time and again, the liberal class actually just funnels support to the Democrats, which their mere existence leads us down a path towards fascism. They handed a dictator's toolkit to Trump. They really did. Whether it was mass surveillance, whether it was endless war, you name it, the growth of ICE, which didn't even exist 20 years ago. Like, they handed a massive dictator's toolkit to Trump. The liberal class in a capitalist democracy is designed to function as a safety valve. It makes possible incremental reform. So he's saying it makes possible incremental reform so that nothing large scale ever changes. At the same time, he says, it does not challenge or question the foundations of power. The quid pro quo sees the liberal class serve as an attack dog to discredit radical social movements. The liberal class, for this reason, is a useful tool of fascism. It gives the system legitimacy. It keeps alive the belief that reform is possible, even though it never comes. The differences between the two ruling parties on substantive issues, such as war, tax cuts, trade deals, and austerity, became indistinguishable. He's talking about after the 1960s. After the protest movements of the 1960s, these two parties became fully indistinguishable. Politics was reduced to burlesque popularity contests between manufactured personalities and acrimonious battles over culture wars. Workers lost protections, wages stagnated, debt peonage soared, constitutional rights were revoked by judicial fiat. The Pentagon consumed half of all discretionary spending. It's now well over half, by the way. The liberal class, rather than stand up against the onslaught, retreated into boutique activism of political correctness. But let's not forget, they also put signs in the yard that say, like, not my president, or black don't crack. No, not that one. Black Lives Matter, or no, hate has no home here. By the way, if you want to know how meaningless a sign that seems like it's lovely, and most of the people that put it up may be lovely people. Like, if they're in your neighborhood and you chat with them, they might be lovely people. But a sign like hate has no home here, you want to know how meaningless it is? Is that the hardcore Zionists that live in our neighborhood that we chatted with on the sidewalk, I chatted with on the sidewalk, etc. When the genocide began on October 7th, that's when they first put their hate has no home here out in their yard. What did it mean to them? It meant do not be anti-genocide, do not be anti-Israel, because that counts as hate. So you can see that the sign that says hate has no home here can be used to actually support a fucking genocide. That's how meaningless that sign is. But again, these are the kind of meaningless activism of a lot of the liberal class. Clinton's welfare reform bill. So he starts to go through how the Democrats have sold out the people. I mean, he's gone through this list many times before, but it's always useful. And, just one of the ones I wanted to highlight of the many ways the Democrats have sold out average Americans over the years. He says Clinton's welfare reform bill, which was signed in 1996, threw 6 million people, many of them single mothers, off the welfare rolls within 4 years. It dumped them onto the streets without childcare, rent subsidies, and Medicaid coverage. Families were plunged into crisis, struggling to survive on multiple jobs that often paid $6 or $7 an hour, or less than $15,000 a year. But they were the lucky ones. In some states, half of those dropped from the welfare rolls could not find work at all. Clinton also slashed Medicare by $150 billion over a 5-year period and cut $14 billion out of Medicaid funding. The overcrowded prison system handled the influx of the poor, as well as the abandoned mentally ill. The Democratic Party throws scraps to the serfs. It congratulates itself for allowing unemployed people the right to keep their unemployed children on for-profit healthcare policies. It passes a jobs bill that gives tax credits to corporations as a response to an unemployment rate that, if it actually included everyone who was jobless or part-time when they wanted to be full-time, etc., it would be 20% of America if you actually, judged the unemployment rate. It forces the Democratic Party forces taxpayers, 1 in 8 of whom depend on food stamps to eat, to fork over trillions to pay for the crimes of Wall Street and endless war, including the genocide in Gaza. The defenestration of the liberal class reduced it to courtiers mouthing empty platitudes. The safety valve shut down. The assault on the working class and working poor accelerated. So too did very legitimate rage. That rage gave us Donald Trump. This is the last little piece. The Democratic tools for change, running for office, campaigning, voting, lobbying, petitioning, no longer work, if they ever worked. Corporate forces and oligarchs have seized control of our political, educational, media, and economic systems. They cannot be removed from within. The Democratic Party is a hollow appendage. Our captured institutions, subservient to the rich and powerful, are capitulating to Trump's authoritarianism. All we have left is sustained, nonviolent, disruptive civil disobedience, mass movements, radical politics, rebellion, a vision that counters the poison of unfettered capitalism. This alone, and of course, unfettered means it goes faster, but it's really the poison of capitalism in general. Because capitalism will inevitably, the gravity of capitalism will be to become unfettered cap. That's where it always goes. Because the capitalists, the richest people in the capitalist system, will always cut the chains off. And they will have the levers of power because they will have the money, because they are the capitalists. You see? It's a fun little loop. Anyway, last sentence, he says, this alone can thwart Trump's police state and rid us of the feckless liberal class that sustains it. So I thought that was important to also bring you today. I'm going to do an extra segment we're going to tear apart over on Locals for my members, although you can join for free. We're going to tear apart Tulsi Gabbard's latest words on how, Trump's a new age of peace and not harming other countries. So I'm going to play some clips of Tulsi Gabbard for my fans over at Locals, which is leecamp.net. You go over there, scroll down to become a supporter. When you're checking out, use promo code LeeCampFree. You got to, I know it says $6. If you click monthly, it says $6, but you got to click promo code and then put in LeeCampFree, one word. Thank you so much, Steve, for supporting the show. You guys in the super chats, honestly, are one of the only reasons this show is still going, honestly. But thank you guys so much. And I will be back Wednesday for another episode at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Also, there's a new episode of Unredacted tonight. If you haven't seen it, that is at leecamp.com/unredacted. And I hope everybody will join me over on Locals right now to tear apart Tulsi Gabbard. Let's do it. For those who are not joining, I bid you farewell. Oh, and I found, let's see. I found music to play while I, like meaningless, royalty-free music to play while I cut off the other streams. Hope you guys will join me. Yeah, ain't that peaceful? Oh, man. Join me over. See, this is actually a punishment for all of you who are not joining me over